Hi everyone, I'm Gary Knoll. We're once again on the road, taking our program to different parts of the world, talking about the subject today of cancer. Cancer kills nearly 500,000 Americans this year, 400,000 last year. It's increasing at the rate of nearly 1.5% a year in mortality. That's unfortunate, but more unfortunate is the idea that cancer is not being fought effectively, and yet the same generals who've been leading this battle have not been challenged based upon their authority. Just more money, more doctors, more chemotherapy, more surgery, and more radiation is what we're told that the battle needs. Could we be looking at a medical Vietnam? How much longer should the American public be expected to be patient with nearly 700,000 new cases of cancer being diagnosed each year? We've come to Freeport, Grand Bahamas, where Dr. Lawrence Burton, a cancer expert, is trying to help and succeeding in helping people regain their immune response in order to set back cancer. You would think that Dr. Burton, who has treated several thousand patients, many of whom have been treated very successfully, and almost all of whom have been nearly terminal when they've come here, would be investigated, vigorously investigated, by the rest of the American press corps. Time, U.S. News and World Report, NBC, ABC, CBS, should all be here, but they haven't been, and it's doubtful that they will be because of the built-in bias that the American media has against the word alternative. Dr. Burton's therapy falls under the concept of alternative. His education is not alternative, as you'll hear in a moment. The way he treats cancer is alternative. It's not toxic. Welcome to our program, Dr. Burton.
Thank you.
Dr. Burton, why the Bahamas? Why not Sloan Kettering? Why not MD Anderson? Why not Roswell Park to do your work?
Well, we originally tried that way. Tried to go in the front door. There was liaison with Sloan Kettering many times. We also tried to go through the front door with the FDA. And after 6 months of getting what I call one stall after another. Originally, Dr. O'Malley, the head of the Bureau of Biologics, he okayed our animal work. Go ahead. In 28 days, if you don't get a letter from us. Well, I got a letter in 28 days which said answer these questions. So we answered those questions. In 28 days, we got a letter from Dr. Wright for Dr. O'Malley asking the same questions with another set of questions.
A bureaucratic trap?
A trap. There was Mr. Parkman for Wright, for O'Malley. That went on for 5 months. Always a new one.
Dr. Burton, some time ago, the New York Daily News had a little article about your work. And it was interesting to see how they referred to you. They referred to you as a zoologist, not even a horse doctor. Could you give us a little background on your credentials, your scientific credentials, and your expertise in researching cancer?
Well, originally, let's see, got my bachelor's degree from Brooklyn College, my master's and PhD from NYU grad school. Spent 2 years at Caltech as a postdoctoral fellow, supported by the Public Health Service, of all things. And then spent 6 months on the faculty at Caltech. Then I was back on the faculty of NYU grad school, then went over to St. Vincent's Hospital, for which originally started with the Hodgkin's Disease Research Foundation. In the period of 15 years, went from a fellow up to a senior oncologist at St. Vincent's Hospital.
Now explain for our audience what an oncologist is.
Theoretically, technically, one who studies cancer. Of course, the chemotherapy therapist has stolen that word. He's an oncologist when really he's an oncologist. He doesn't know anything about cancer, he hasn't studied it. He knows how to kill, but really doesn't study that much about it. But oncologist is one who studies cancer. And how we got into that, originally I was in carcinogenesis, the causation of tumors. And always seemed to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. We eventually, nobody at one time could cause any tumors in mice. And then we were able to extract a protein from humans, put it into the C3HF mice, 0 incidence of cancer. In our own strain, we've had 1 spontaneous cancer in 10,000 animals, so it's practically cancer-free. At that time, a Dr. Grace at Roswell Park was isolating, quote, viruses. This was at the height of the virus story, in which he took the mammary, something from the human, put it into the Swiss mouse, which had a certain basal percentage of tumors to start with. He elevated the incidence. His work was good, ours was no good. We tried to publish that paper. It was just, it ended up, we published in the Argentine Journal of Pathology after 3 years.
But before that, when you were working at St. Vincent's Hospital with Dr. Rottino, doing cancer work, you were publishing your results regularly in respected peer-reviewed journals in the United States.
Well, again, bad things occurred. We found while we were inducing the tumors in the mice that from the human we couldn't get the incidence if we extracted the protein from mouse. And then by digging in the human, the mouse, and what have you, we found another substance that stimulated the induction. Well, a year went of that work, and then we would mix it with known, what would you say, potent protein to induce tumor. And we jumped from 45% up to 88%.
See, you're going to lose most people here because it's a little confusing. You're going into the nature of your research when most people are not scientists.
But the important part of this is, while we were trying to increase the incidence of tumor induction, we mixed one preparation with the tumor inducer and we got nothing. And we went back and we couldn't, and the tumor inducer was still live. We had found the original substance called inhibitor. Well, Dr. Rottino in '61 said, what would it do, and we're jumping forward, in humans that are dying of cancer? And we treated one patient and she went into remission. And overnight we went from carcinogenesis, the cause of tumor, to the killing of tumor. And in 1963, we published a paper, The Long-Term Induced Remission of AKR leukemic, in early AKR leukemic mice. This is the first time, a demonstration that the body has something that will kill the cancer. Well, we thought everybody was waiting for that. Well, we were shocked. It's called naivete. The first thing that occurred is our $580,000 grant from the Public Health Service was canceled. Our $80-some-odd-thousand grant from the Damon Runyon was canceled. Everything was canceled, and there was 6 PhDs and 2 MDs in the group, and everything split up. To jump far forward, the father of TNF, and that's very popular now, well, the paper was published in '78 by Robert Castle, who was one of the group at St. Vincent's, and he extracted it from liver. And we used to extract our tumor antibody from liver. Castle also published in '79 Tumor Complement. Memorial has it. I think TNF is our tumor antibody with another name.
Dr. Burton, let's go back a bit. When you were at St. Vincent's, the American Cancer Society's science writer, Pat McGrady Sr., came by the hospital. He was a friend of Rottino. He asked what was new, and Rottino said that you had been able to develop a substance that, when injected into mice that had tumors, were able to shrink the tumors in a period of an hour. He wanted a demonstration that was given. He was impressed, so impressed that he invited you and Dr. Friedman, one of the associates, to come to the American Cancer Society's annual Science Writers Conference. in Phoenix, Arizona. There at that conference, before all the science writers, 2 mice were selected.
Oh, there were 8 of them.
8 of them?
8 of them.
But the injection was given. In a period of a couple hours, the tumor shrank before everyone's eyes. Correct?
Well, to a degree. It's shortened down.
And then many of the science writers were very excited by this because nothing up to that point had been able to do that. And immediately, some of the leading oncologists started to say that this was just quackery. So McGrady said, all right, you take the ampules and you inject the mice. You select your own mice and inject them.
Oh, well,
they refused to do so?
I think it sounds a little different. McGrady was at St. Vincent's to get a stomach resection. While he was recuperating, he went through, and we were in just the beginning of injecting breast tumor mice. Now, we were studying in that time what occurs. We would anesthetize the mouse, inject the mouse, and then open up the body, pin it out, and watch what occurred. Well, Pat McGrady said, how often can you do this? Well, we said, we've done it about 50 times. Has it failed? I said, no. Would you put it on for the science writers? Yes, we went to Phoenix, Arizona. There, we injected 8 of the animals. We unblocked the animal's immune mechanism. Essentially, what we did is took out the blocking protein and gave the animal back what was present in its blood. The only thing added was a sodium-potassium buffer. Well, when this occurred, I know the Los Angeles Examiner had a headline, the 10-minute cancer cure. Oh, big time. But a group of oncologists went to him and said it was a trick. Somehow we tricked them. Well, how did we trick them? Before we ever injected the animals, a group of researchers went up and palpated these animals and verified this is a tumor. There's one big, a renowned researcher by the name of Donald Morton, who at that time was working with the same strain, and he said, these are the animals. But when they went and said we tricked them, McGrady came to us and said, would you do it again? But we said we still had we had 3 ampules left. We don't have any mice left. Would you put on this? I said, well, if you bring the same strain of mouse, we'll do it. Well, he got them together with a man from the UPI, and I don't remember, and a man by the name of Cleary from the Philadelphia Inquirer. And they copied down exactly everything they said about us. They were not kind words. Then McGrady said, well, I'll tell you what, now that you've said that, let us prove it. You get the mice, we'll do it again. To which Cleary said, well, you know, it was going to be a big story, and if this works, I'm going to use your names, and I want to know why you are saying this when you know nothing about it. With that, the whole resistance disappeared, and maybe they were mistaken. We jumped forward to the New York Academy of Medicine. We did it again. And it went on. Everybody was pro and happy. Now, when you inject the animals and you put it in a table in front of all of the audience, how did we switch the mice? This is what they claimed, that we somehow switched the mice on them.
We jump forward in time. Your skeptics, your critics continued to be in positions of power to deny you research funds, to deny you an opportunity to do your work. You decided after a number of years that it was best to work in an environment where you would be less restricted by bureaucracy. So you came here to the Bahamas, to Freeport.
Well, no, there was a short stay out on Long Island.
Right.
And we left Long Island, nobody chased us. So for freedom. And also to protect the MDs. Now, I've never treated a patient, but to protect the MDs, when a patient came with a hopeless case, to protect them, we had to send that patient for surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy. And if they made it through that, they could come back and be treated with impunity at the clinic on Long Island. And some of them came back, and some of them made it. And there were still some, I think 3 or 4 patients alive out of that original group from 1974-75. But I saw that they couldn't touch me. What are they going to do? Call me a quack and take the H out of the PhD? They can't take my license away. I have my degrees, but they could. The confreres could attack those MDs. So I came to the Bahamas, went to the Bahamian government and said, I think we have something. Can we try it out for a 5-year period? For which they said one important thing, that you cannot get a salary any more than any other PhD in the Bahamas. So the salary was done, and now try it out. And to go very quickly, what happened with that, we tried it out. First of all, we knew what the dosage was. That we had learned in Long Island. But how do you give it? So for 1 year, 288 patients, and I still think there's about 30 or 40 of those still alive. That's from 1977. We learned how to give it. These are 3 proteins. If a patient makes tumor antibody, you cannot give them more antibody. I mean, it's a waste. You're unbalancing. You give them tumor complement first, which activates the antibody, just kills the tumor. When a tumor cell dies, it releases a prealbumin, a protein, which we can titer and measure whether these doses were right.
So you're measuring the effective kill ratio in the blood?
In the blood. Now, to get rid of the blocking protein, we use a deblocking protein called an alpha-2 macroglobulin.
So what you're saying is that the cancer cell protects itself by forming a protein around it.
Well, I don't know around. All I know is that any cell, when it dies, infection kills cells, the level, the titer of this blocking protein, the prealbumin, elevates. So all cells produce this, theoretically, to prevent your immune mechanism from killing those cells. Now, when a tumor cell dies, wonderful, but it does liberate that prealbumin, which prevents the further activation of the antibody by complement. At one time I said, my God, the tumor has a mind of its own. No, this is a body function. If you can theorize, it has a good function. Your sanitation department is your liver. That eliminates the byproducts of cell destruction. When you get gangrene, you don't die of the toxin. You die of too many cells. You die of liver failure. So this prealbumin, the blocking protein, the level goes up. It stops the further activation of the antibody by complement, giving your liver time to eliminate that. Now, just in the past couple of years, I've seen something else. Many cancer patients get periodic elevation of temperature. Not high, 101, could even go to 102, and then it goes down. Theoretically, I'll theorize. This is good. What is occurring is that most enzymes work more efficiently at a slightly higher temperature. And your liver isn't getting rid of the cell debris, the temperature goes up. The enzymes work faster. But over the years, we'll capsulize this. We learned the dosage and then saw that, well, my mind couldn't keep it all. We went into computer. From one computer to another. I estimate over the years, since '78, we've spent almost $1 million on hardened software. Now, this didn't come out of my pocket. There was no grants. It came from the patients. The patients are responsible for that. That is what they pay, we use to that. There was no fortunes made. Up until 1984, I hate to tell you, my total bankroll was $1,800. We kept putting it back. But now we have gotten into computerized. The computer does it better. It's insulting to a degree. It's my formulas, yet the computer does a better job.
Could you explain what happens for the layperson inside the body that causes them to go into remission, or to their body's ability to be stimulated enough to help them fight the cancer?
Well, we'll back off one little bit. What are we hoping to achieve? Number one, to stop the growth of the cancer. And it's an odd little bit, and it may sound silly. If you live long enough, you may live. If you live with the cancer long enough, eventually the body will do it. It's dependent. You can get different immune responses. In other words, you get a standoff. They continue, your cancer is live, and you make tumor cells all the time. It multiplies. If the killing rate equals that, you will then stand still. You'll have the cancer, health should come back, and you're standing still. Another way is the tumor dies, and the body, with another immune response, wraps it with fibers. Essentially, fibroblasts are in connective tissue, walls it off. And the best way is for a total regression of the tumor. You can have all of those responses. How does this occur? It's theoretic. I don't know. I think the tumor antibody goes to the tumor. The tumor complement activates the antibody. The product is a dead cell. When the cell ruptures, it liberates the prealbumin, the blocking protein, which will stop further activation of the antibody. Now, in an individual that has a small tumor, there are many patients that after you do an autopsy on them, and you open them up and you find dead tumor all over the place, yet they were never treated, which means there is an immune mechanism. We're adding it to make it more efficient. You can't totally unblock it. If you unblock it, you have rampant killing of tumor cells. Now the liver then starts to work hard and you go into liver exhaustions. We had 2 patients who went into liver exhaustion with dire results in '77. So an anachronism is we treat very vigorously, cautiously.
Dr. Burton, how many total patients have you treated?
The best I can tell you is how many patients that have come here. Approximately 3,600, which includes maybe, I would say, a good 2,000 that have come here. We've rejected the patient, but they've been examined, they've gone into the computer, we never treated them. So I would say on a whole about 3,400 patients.
What percentage have been terminal?
Well, one of the reasons we came here was to treat patients. Hopefully we would get patients before their immune mechanism have been battered. And in 1977, 12.4% were pristine cases. In 1987, we graduated to 1.4%. We have gone the other way. It's called the last chance saloon.
So almost 99% of the people coming here are terminal.
Are all in the terminal
What
state.
do you think, or what is your experience as far as chemotherapy affecting their chances of survival?
Well, we'll pick a type of case, pancreas to liver. When we get them pristine and the surgeon has done their job, almost all of the pancreatics jump and get liver metastasis. So when they biopsy them, they should do a bypass so that they bypass the common bile duct. If they do this, we have many that are alive and doing very well.
What are the most serious forms of cancer that normally would have no prognosis of surviving that you've been able to have good results with?
Well, the one I think, and I haven't seen a report, we have the only, quote, cures at 5 years from diagnosis for peritoneal mesothelioma. We have, let's see, Jerry Lampe is 8 years out of New York. Hovhanessian will be 8 years this coming December. Mildred Irwin has passed 5 years. There's a whole group of them. I think we have 8 or 9 of those alive out of approximately 20.
So you have about 20% survival rate.
Of this kind, we have almost 50%.
50% now of the most
Of the
worst,
the worst CA.
worst types of cancer.
Well, the NCI put out a booklet on this one, and on page 5 on mesothelioma, it says for the peritoneal mesothelioma, there is no treatment, only palliative treatment for pain.
And yet you have some of these alive and well?
Well, there's one, two, the first two do not take any treatment at home. In fact, I haven't seen Jerry Lampy since 1984. The only thing he suffers from is overweight, which is in contrast to the wasting part. Yes, patients gain weight. I've often wondered why. Well, part of it is, I think, is psychological. How do you celebrate when you get better? You eat. When you eat, you feel better. What do? You eat again. And some of them gain weight. But this is the worst type. In terms of colon to liver or metastatic colon, well, quote Dr. DeVita, nobody makes 5 years. And yet we have a whole group of them. The first two patients, well, the first patient asked me, how long could I live? Well, as Robert Beasley, we treated back in New York in 1975, colon to liver, jaundice. Robert Beasley is still alive. He hasn't taken any treatment since 81.
And yet that normally is a totally terminal cancer.
They all die then tobacco. Well, it's a miracle. There's Dorothy Strait, August of 76. And it's colon to liver, cannonballs in there. In fact, this one was verified by her doctor out of Virginia Beach. He should have hooked her back up together.
Why don't you do this? Hold your thoughts. We're at the end of our particular broadcast today. However, we're going to take advantage of Dr. Lawrence Burton's starting to unwind and talk about his therapy. We have a lot of his patients. We also want to take you through his clinic so you can see firsthand what goes on. It's amazing that one of his critics claimed that Dr. Lawrence Burton's clinic should be closed because it was a filthy, fly-infested rat trap with no sterilizing equipment and a breeding grounds for AIDS and other conditions. Well, needless to say, that kind of statement, irresponsibly stated, could scare people away, people who had inoperable cancers, the very type of cancers that the National Cancer Institute claims cannot be helped. And yet here, Dr. Burton, according to the evidence that I have seen and the patients I've interviewed, has been able to help as much as 50% of otherwise untreatable terminally ill people. So stay with us, come back next week when you'll have part 2 of an ongoing odyssey of profound medical courage, Dr. Lawrence Burton. I'm Gary Knoll from Freeport, Grand Bahamas. Stay healthy and stay well.